Welcome to another GN4GN, where we're being led by the truth and not by emotions. Brother Josh again, back again with Brother Block.
Shalom.
Got another topic for y'all today. We're gonna go over end times prophecy. We're just gonna go over the very revelation of prophecy our God gave us in the Word to show how flawless His Word is. All right, we're gonna start with the first one, the Arab Spring or the Arab Uprising.
Well, in Daniel 11, verse 40 through 45, it talks about how the king of the north and the king of the south, and the king of the north is what we would call the UN or the European Union, along with the United States, Israel, and the king of the south would be Iran and the other Arab states, and they will have a conflict. And the king of the north will just basically run through the Arab nations and cause so much uprising and chaos, and it would basically trample the current the rulers or the regime that is currently ruling those Arab nations. And that's exactly what happened in the Arab Spring. It lists very specific to Jordan, countries like Jordan. It talks about Egypt. It talks about Libya. And if you know about, been watching the news and been keeping track of the news the last couple of years, ever since the uprising started in 2011, you've seen that.
And there it is. There is the still.
The leaders of Libya and Egypt were overthrown. And this also leads to our next end time prophecy, especially talking about Egypt. So that was definitely fulfilled and foretold, the Arab uprising, in Daniel 11, verse 40 through 45. And it talks about how the tidings from the east and the north will come. And that's speaking of China and Russia. And they're playing a huge part in the Middle East right now.
Yeah, they are. Okay, that's going to cover the Egypt Civil War, or the Civil War in Egypt. Also, the next one, Damascus destroyed, or better known now as Syria.
Well, first let's go back to the Egypt uprising. In Isaiah 19, it talks specifically about the civil war in Egypt, and how God will send a spirit that will go through and cause up all this confusion, and basically the whole government, the leaders will be confounded. They'll be like fools, and people will seek to their idols, and that's exactly what they're doing in Egypt, because they are Muslim and they believe in Allah, the moon god, and they're seeking to him and they're praying out, but there's no peace.
Engulfed in turmoil, Egyptians experience a night of competing demonstrations. Supporters of the military filled Tahrir Square and the grounds outside the presidential palace. Across Cairo, in the suburb of Nasser City, rallies against military rule were equally spirited. Protesters there view the army's removal of President Mohamed Morsi as a coup. They say the military used live bullets and tear gas to disperse them. An unknown number of people have been injured or killed. The exact figures are unclear, and makeshift field hospitals have struggled to cope with casualties.
There's no solution to their problems because they're worshiping an idol. So in the Bible even talks about how the waters will be dried up. And if you know anything and been keeping up with the news in Egypt right now, they're in a big dispute with Ethiopia over a dam being built by the Ethiopians. And this dam will basically, they say, will leave the Nile basically dry in Egypt. So there's a big dispute going on, and Isaiah 19 talks specifically about the civil war and about that the drying up of the water. So God, like He said, He foretold us all things.
Okay, that's awesome. Isaiah 19, check that out. The next one, Damascus, like I said, or Syria destroyed, and I see that it's talked about in Isaiah 17.
Yeah, Isaiah 17 said Damascus, which is the capital of Syria, is one of the oldest cities inhabited cities in the world, and one of the oldest Christian cities to boot that. And the Bible said in Isaiah 19 that that Damascus will be in a ruinous heap. Now, if you have been keeping track of all the drone bombings and all the chemical bombings and all the missiles being launched and the the war that's going on over there.
The result of shelling on Damascus. This amateur video, which can't be independently verified, is said to have been shot in the district of Kaboon. This clip is thought to have been shot the day before. There's widespread damage to buildings caused, the cameraman says, by an air raid. Both sides in Syria have also accused each other of chemical attacks. A team of UN-led experts are on standby in Cyprus ready to investigate, but are being held up by diplomatic wrangling over their powers.
Literally and physically, in all types of ways, spiritually, Damascus is a ruinous heap. It's a pile of rubble, you know, and so that prophecy has been fulfilled, as described in Isaiah 17.
Right. I seen the coverage on, on the news. All right, the next one, the worldwide economic crisis, and it's talked about. I see in James 5 and Revelation 6.
Yeah, James 5 talks about, says, "Woe unto the rich man, for your miseries will come upon you." And if you've been keeping track over the last month, in February, 9 international bankers, top bankers,
I did see that.
Important bankers in economic realm or the business world have committed suicide and been found dead. And this is huge, you know, and their misery is coming upon them. And it says why their misery is coming upon them, because by fraud, how they defrauded the working class, you know, how they manipulated them, how they're making the big bucks, and the people who work for them, who allow them to allow them to be profitable, are making pennies, you know, compared to what they're making. They're struggling.
Do you really think Apple doesn't know?
But what was news were the suicides.
Well, while I was there in May and June of 2010. That's really at the peak of when the suicides were happening, with kind of terrible regularity, where week after week workers would go up onto the roofs of these buildings and throw themselves off the buildings.
When you were there, were there nets around the building to prevent further suicides?
There was, yes.
So you saw those?
I did.
And what did that look like, looking up and seeing them?
They look a lot like the nets you would put out to catch fish.
They can barely, survive and support their families while they're just lounging around, and like they say, the 1%ers. Only 1% of the world that has, has those millions and billions of dollars, that wealth, and, the rest are basically barely making it above the poverty line, and that's a shame. So all that, God said, I'm hearing all the cries of those people, and your misery will come upon you. All your riches will rust. All the things that you heaped up will be destroyed and taken from you. And also in Revelations, it talks about the black horse. And this is not coincident that you see even in pop culture world, Carrie Perry came out with a video called the Black Horse or the Dark Horse, whatever it's talking about. And it talks about this horseman that rides this black horse is carrying balances, and it talks about how the weed will go for a penny this and penny that, and basically it's just describing how it would be a famine. And it's also talked about in Matthew 24. It fits in with that famine that we're going to be talking about later on. But it's going to be a financial famine. It's going to be a drought of food and people, a lot of poverty going on. It's going to be a worldwide economic crisis, as we've seen with the Wall Street movement and the uprises going on that front. The Bible talks about all that.